I'm Kathy Berner, the event coordinator at Blue Willow Bookshop, and I am very excited to welcome you here to the first in-store, in-person event with this amazing team, Jarrett and Jerome Pumphrey. We're celebrating Link and Hud, Heroes by a Hair. And if you order Link and Hud, Heroes by a Hair from us, don't I sound like the dad? You will get a signed and personalized book if you want it, plus a lenticular print signed by both Jarrett and Jerome. In all seriousness, it's such an honor to work with you and such an honor to be here with you celebrating the work that you've done so far. And I'm so excited about this and the work you have to come. First of all, congratulations. Happy early birthday to this gorgeous book.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
I'm so glad you're here.
So happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
We are always delighted to have you. Where did Lincoln Hud come from?
So Lincoln Hud, the idea for Lincoln Hud actually came from our editor. Well, the idea of doing a book for brothers, about brothers. A book about brothers, from brothers, was his idea. So we won't take credit for that. It was a great idea, though.
Hi, Simon, if you're watching.
Yeah. And so we immediately started thinking about our childhood.
Right.
And that made sense for us. That was the story we wanted to capture. And so we tapped into that pretty heavily. I mean, this is almost autobiographical. And it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. So.
You guys were something.
Yeah, we were.
Did you always know it was going to be a graphic novel and not a picture book? Because thus far, you're mostly known for doing picture books.
Yeah, so we knew we wanted to do a chapter book, another format from picture book. That was the talk with Simon. But we didn't know how to make a chapter book. We'd never written a chapter book or a novel or a graphic novel or anything like that. So I bought a lot of books from you guys.
Yes, you did.
We read a lot of books, and we just looked at what we liked and what we didn't like. And what we found was we wanted to make a book in this format that our goal really, honestly, was to just do something that wasn't boring. We really wanted
Well, you succeeded.
Not be boring, thanks. And so it was like, how do we do that? Do I write a chapter that is one brother's perspective? Does he write the other brother? We talked about a lot of different things. One brother was going to be prose, the other brother was going to be graphic novel at one point. Oh. And ultimately we settled on me doing the writing. I'd write the words, Jerome would draw the pictures.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And we really wanted to capture the shared reality of brothers. And we thought the best way to show that is these brothers, they see the world a certain way through their vivid imaginations. We're going to show that in graphic novel panels. And then reality, the real world, their parents, everything else, that's in print. And that provided these awesome opportunities to show the page turn, the transition from imagined world to real world. And we had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
So you ended up illustrating the imaginary.
That's right.
The imaginary world. Did you two work out the story together and then you drew the imagined situation?
Well, yeah, it's like that exactly. The same way that we collaborate on our picture books, we started out knowing that we were writing about the two brothers, and we had to figure out what that story was. So we did mine our childhoods, and we figured out what the story would be. And as Jarrett said, he wrote the words, and then he even, he wrote the graphic novel chapters as far as script.
Right.
And then it was over to me to figure out the visual storytelling, and that was breaking down the panels and even what spot illustrations, because the whole book is illustrated,
right? Not
just the graphic novel chapters.
Right, so there's the graphic novel chapters.
Yeah.
And then I'm not showing that one. 131. Thank you. Oh yeah, thank you. And then this.
That's right. So that was over to me to do, but even that was collaborative. We would take the script and walk through those chapters and see if it felt like the panels were working, and Jarrett would give his input, I'd give my input, and we'd land somewhere that felt good.
So when you wrote this, were you both in Austin, or were you in Florida and you in Austin?
So I think when we signed on to do it, he was still in Austin.
That's right.
And then he immediately moved.
So, I mean, does that mean you sat on Zoom together?
We did quite a lot of that, but I will say the writing, he went to his corner and he was doing that, and then I would do my part, like the actual hours of drawing. I did that by myself, but we would do Zoom calls to do the collaboration, and that would be, well, I'm saying Zoom. I think it was Google Hangouts or something.
Yeah,
But something like
Yeah.
you were on screens together doing that.
Exactly.
yeah, a lot.
Did you wait to start the illustrations till they sent you out the whole text?
We did. Well, first we had to have a little proof of concept, because the way that this book works is, as Jarrett was describing, there's prose that is the real world, and then there's the imagination sequence. And we wanted to show what that experience was. So we did the first few chapters with the characters that we came up with, and we sent that off to the editor.
Yeah.
And it was it was the story we wanted to tell, and we felt it was capturing the spirit that we wanted to. And that's as much art as was done in the beginning. Then it was over to Jarrett to get the script fully polished and done.
Yeah, and it took some time. I will admit that. It took some time to figure it out.
Right.
But Simon was awesome, super patient with us. He allowed us to work it out, and then it was over to Jerome, and he plowed through it. I didn't leave him a whole lot of time to do the art, so the fact that he did that much art, I mean, it's a lot, and he did such a fantastic job. I mean,
It's so fantastic. It's so gorgeous, and really the imagination that then leads into some really interesting situations that as children and as parents we recognize. So you are not the only two brothers.
no.
Were all of the brothers like Lincoln Hud?
Yeah, we were.
And how many are there?
There's 4 brothers, and we were all very similar in age, and so that was our group, and we would turn the house upside down doing stuff. Our parents are the parents in the book.
Yep.
Our dad is Dr. Dupree. He had multiple businesses. That opening scene in the book with the peanuts, so the boys are playing in these peanuts. We pulled that straight from real life. That actually happened. It turns out our dad, he's a dentist, and he was building massage tables for some reason.
Okay.
And he had these giant bags of packing peanuts to pack the massage tables up that he hoped he would sell. He only sold one, and that was to the neighbor, so he ended up not needing the packing peanuts.
You did not need those peanuts.
And so we played. They turned into toys and
Yeah.
stump bags for us. We'd jump off the shelves and
Oh, don't do that. Do not jump off the shelves on the packing peanuts. Advice for the audience, please don't do that. Oh my God.
but we got up to that sort of thing a lot.
Yeah.
And our parents, they were at work. Our dad had his practice. Our mom ran his practice.
Yeah.
They were busy, so they brought in outside help. Miss Joyce, she's a real person, and I think I captured her spirit pretty good in the text. And
you did in the illustrations too.
Yeah. She was really like that. We never got her fired, never succeeded, but she did. Putting us in the bathroom for timeouts, that was a real thing. And so we spent plenty of time in the bathroom thinking about our actions.
There are no toys in there.
No, there are.
Well, there are,
Well,
if you like to play with toilet paper.
That's
So
true.
there's your segue that I have just provided.
Yes. So there is a lot of toilet paper in this book, and I built this
Get ready.
toilet paper launcher. So a good friend of ours told us how to do this, and it's just a blower with this. Y'all ready?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
very excited for this.
oh, this is the best.
I missed the fan. I should have got the fan.
Oh
But
my God.
Give me another roll. We're gonna reload.
Let's do another roll.
I think we have a blower.
All I can think of is, you know what it would be like to toilet paper freeze in neighborhoods?
There we go. That's how we want to do it.
Can we leave it for the moment?
Can Can you imagine our dear friend Julia's face if that were to happen?
Can we send a photograph?
Yeah, Mary Kay, will you text in the staff group chat that this is what's going on at the store?
Absolutely. And
This
that we're
piece is
leaving
still
it.
there, I'm just moving.
So did you guys do
Camera.
anything like that?
We did things not quite with toilet paper, but I do remember this one time we took, I think we were on some sort of safari, and we had turned our upstairs playroom into the African savannah. And we had blankets everywhere. The couches were all upside down and moved all over the place. It was that sort of thing. That's how it was in our house, and our parents encouraged it. In their own way, they were pretty creative, entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
very creative, but they supported it, and so it was great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I know so many people who will be building these. So, Jerome, for you specifically, y'all have worked together on picture books, but now you're dividing your roles. How does working on a picture book inform making a graphic novel? And do you think working on the graphic novel will inform your illustrative work going forward?
That's a very good question. I think there's definitely similarities with the visual storytelling. And I think in this project, we did that probably more than I usually see. For instance, there's panels where they're in the imaginary world,
Yeah.
and you see this whole composition of they're on the moon or on the space base or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you get this page turn and you see what's happening in the real world. That's very picture book thinking.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I think that informed my visual storytelling on this, but
Yeah.
otherwise it's very different because you're having to show
Yeah.
exactly. It's almost like filmmaking with
Yeah.
you've got a text and a dialogue that's happening, and you've got to have a face for each thing that's being said. So it was a lot more drawing than I've ever done. I think it's about 240 pages of illustration in this, and
Yeah.
it was faster. But
I did not.
so I think I took what I've learned from picture book making and applied it to this. The other way around, I'm not sure yet. We'll see as I get into more picture books.
Absolutely. So I'm just thinking about the way you were talking about. So this is the
Sure.
space base, and then there's Miss Joyce.
Right.
But that also makes that page turn also makes me think of a panel flip in Calvin and Hobbes.
Yes. And I think that's one of our very strong influences on this. We love Calvin and Hobbes growing up and still.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
we still read them all the time.
Right.
That is amazing. Any questions from the audience?
What's your next book?
Next book.
What a great question.
That's a great
Good
question.
question.
So we've got a book coming out in the fall. It is with Jason Reynolds. Do you know Jason Reynolds? No. He's,
You will get to know Jason. Reynolds.
Yes.
yeah. He's got a book coming out called "There Was a Party for Langston," and we got to make the artwork for that book. And so we're super excited about that. We just actually finished the last of that,
That's right.
and so that's in the fall. And then what's after that?
So then after that, we also have another book. So these are picture books. That's what he just described. And there's another picture book called The Last Stand that we're illustrating for an author named Antoine Eady. And it's a beautiful story about the subject of farming and Black farmers. And that one I don't believe has a release date, but we're in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Antoine, if you're watching,
We love you.
we love you very much. Caroline, do you have
I
questions?
do have a question. Connor Rich wants to know, what is your favorite part of making picture books?
Okay, great.
And probably graphic novels too.
Sure.
Okay, great question. I think my favorite part of making picture books is, well, I love working with someone. So I love working with Jarrett so far. And I mean that he's the only person I've actually co-created a picture book with
Sure.
as a co-creator. But I do like that. I like having someone else's input on something, and in the end, you get this artistic creation, which is greater than anything I could have made by myself. And that's what I love doing.
Yeah, I would echo that. It's been great working with Jerome so far also. For me, it's when we get this sort of tingling sensation when we've nailed it, or we think we've nailed it, where we've got the pictures telling part of the story and the text telling part of the story, and they find that balance, and then you read it and you're like, ooh, that's it. That to me is the best part of making picture books in particular. And we got some of that in this too, where we tell the story and the text is doing its thing, and then you see these pictures and it's like, yeah, it's a whole that is so much better altogether than either the parts separate.
And I think, speaking as a librarian and as a bookseller, when we read your work and we see that, we have the same feeling. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it's just, a picture book is such an interesting form.
Yeah.
And people often think it's very easy.
Yes.
To either illustrate or to write. But in fact, I think creating a picture book is among the hardest.
I would agree.
To do, because you have such limited space,
Right.
limited words, and you have to convey so much, and you do it beautifully.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yes. I know you have a question, sir.
Will there be a sequel to this book?
Yes.
You are awesome. You are
Yes.
asking outstanding questions.
Did you feed him the?
I did not. You're doing so well.
Yeah. So
Lincoln HUD 2?
Lincoln HUD 2 is in the works now, and then hopefully more after that. We've got lots of stories to tell.
Oh, I bet.
Lots of things we'd like to share. So hopefully people like it. So we get to the
Do your mom and dad know all the stories?
They do now.
probably
Yeah.
not. yeah.
No, but like, do you think you'd ever, that's a great question. Do you think you'd ever write anything in this series that would surprise them? That they didn't know it happened?
What do you think?
Good question. I don't know. I mean, it was interesting. My dad read this, just finished it last week, and he wasn't so. Well, you know, one thing he said was, "You guys didn't really get put in the bathroom, did you?" I was
Sorry,
like,
Miss Joyce.
absolutely, we did.
Yeah. I don't know that there's anything we haven't already shared with them that would surprise them. It'd be really hard to surprise them, but yeah. They might be shocked that we actually put it in a book. But we'll see.
How did you decide on yellow and red?
Okay, sure, I'll answer that one. Well, for this was the cover design that we ended up doing. There's a character that in the book, which is in the boy's imagination, called Goldtooth.
Yeah.
So we knew we were going to have gold on there.
Okay.
And then the rest of it, it was actually inspired a little bit by Pulp Fiction covers. Like the actual, not the movie, but Pulp Fiction from the 1930s and 40s.
Yeah.
Which have this really, you know, they used a very limited color palette back then because of the inks.
Right.
And that informed it. And I believe, I mean, my inspiration behind that is if you look at all the activities the boys imagine themselves doing, it's really kind of that adventurous flavor of those classic fiction. For instance, they imagine themselves as spies, as detectives, as these space cadets.
Yep.
And so, yeah, all of that influenced that.
Do you know what color the next one's gonna be?
I don't yet. We have to
'Cause
get that.
I'm so excited to see what you'll do. Because, you know, with some of our favorite series, when we see like Mac B Kid Spy, we always love seeing those and what's the next color gonna be.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So I'm very eager
And
to
the
see.
spine.
And the spine.
Tree.
Yeah.
Keep that going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excited to see. I mean, we made some examples just to see how can you change up this design, and it looks good with a lot of different colors. I'll
Awesome.
say that.
Awesome. I like seeing the green and the purple. Yeah. So that's awesome. Any other questions?
Oh, yes, one more.
Sorry, Caroline's
Sorry.
busy pouring the toilet paper.
Sorry.
Again from Connor online. What do you draw the picture with, and how do you decide how perfect to make the picture?
Oh.
Okay, that's a great question. So these, for the artwork that ended up in the book, I created it digitally. I'll say this, when designing the characters, I like to work with a pencil and paper just to do sketches. I feel that's a real easy way to draw quickly. But in the end, I did it digitally. So that means on a computer with a computer program. And I use Photoshop, and it's called a Wacom tablet. So it's just, you have a little stylus and you can draw in there. And there's all different types of brushes you can use in Photoshop to get the classic cartoon look. And that's what I used. And I was going for a very loose look on this because it's a really fun, fun spirit that we wanted to capture. So it's not that perfect. I pretty much went with what came up after a couple passes.
I think to Connor's point, one of the things that I really appreciate about your picture books that you've done together is your perspective on the stamps.
Yeah,
Speaking of making it perfect,
right.
can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
Sure, I could take that one because I do some stamps. So we try to, we think it looks so great when it's imperfect. Like, we don't want it to be perfect. And maybe it's part of our process, but Jerome will draw it and then I'm cutting it out. And so the line, I'm not following his line perfectly. And that, that's in part because I can't.
Right.
And also because we're working with foam, and foam is squishy and it moves around on us. And so we get wobbly lines here and there, and then we make a print and the ink doesn't transfer perfectly. So you get some stamp texture in there. All of that adds to the charm, we think, of the art. And so we like it. I think it's great when it's imperfect. It doesn't look polished, overly polished. It can look stiff. It can look really boring. And so we try to avoid that. And I think it just naturally happens kind of out of the process. We did have a rule on the old truck. It was, and we've gotten a little looser with this over time, but it was like, we cut it, whatever it is, we go with it. And we try to maintain that. We try not to edit it once it's scanned in. Like, it's hard to fake that.
Right. It
So
is. It absolutely
let's
is.
do it and capture it.
So I love that you lean into the imperfection. I think that's fantastic. Yes, sir.
So what's your favorite book that you've done?
Favorite book, I think the last book I did is always my favorite, at least until my next book. So right now, this one's my favorite. It's also a favorite because it's a first. It's our first novel, graphic novel. If I had to pick a favorite picture book, it'd probably be The Old Truck. That was our first one where we both got to write it and illustrate it. Every one. First tend to be favorites for me.
Okay, and I'm ditto, basically. Yeah, I like the Old Truck is a favorite because it was the first book that we authored and illustrated together, and it was so well received and has created all of these other opportunities for us. So it really is a favorite for me.
Just a quick question. Did you ever plan this when you were growing up, writing something together, or did it come out like in recent years? And then what was your biggest challenge in terms of the whole beginning to end project?
Good
Great
question.
questions, yeah.
You want to take it?
Go for it.
Okay, so we knew when we were very young that we liked to work together, making stories. At that time, Jarrett did most of the writing and I would do the drawing. So that was like school age, I think 3rd, 4th grade, and that type of thing. When we were teenagers, we actually thought we could write our first book. And we just went to a bookstore, bought books on how do you write a book and get it published. And we wrote our first picture book manuscript that did get published, which was called Creepy Things Are Scaring Me. And that was when we were teenagers and got published by a publisher, and it was a book, and we were really excited about that. Then we sort of went on to do regular jobs.
Yeah.
Jarrett, you can speak.
Yeah, I ended up in California for a little while making video games, and then I came back and I did some things with our dad, one of his businesses. Jerome ended up working for Disney as a graphic designer. And so we took some other sort of detours before we got back. We were both back in Texas, and then things aligned to where we were like, we should revisit making books together again. And that's when we started The Old Truck. And since then, it's been book, and it's been great. Yeah, it's kind of a dream come true. Like, it was a 20-year gap, something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
From our first book that we authored to the first book that we author illustrated. So, biggest challenge, I would say initially it was just that sort of perseverance to just stick to it and see it through. It's so easy to get distracted with other things, and we had day jobs at the time, and so you get busy and then you got to come home and spend time with your family. So put more time in working can sort of be a challenge. But since we figured out how to make books together, the challenge really has just been getting it all done. I'd say it's been we're so grateful for the opportunities we've had over the last couple of years. It's just been so much work, and it's what we've always wanted to do. So there's no way I would complain about it, but it's been challenging.
Yeah, and I would echo that.
So you still have your day job?
So
Do you still have your day job?
I did not have my day job. I was fortunate enough to that company that I started with my dad. We were able to sell that, and that allows me to write full time now, which is fantastic. And he actually
right,
is,
yeah, I stopped my day job about a year ago to write full time to take advantage of these opportunities. But I'm still use that skill set of art direction, which is what I was ultimately doing for Disney, and we'll see. But the concentration is certainly the writing right now.
it's been good. I've been having a great time.
Well, we're having a great time
Yes.
with everything
Yes,
you're
we
producing.
are.
Right.
Yes.
It is amazing. Anything else
So right now,
online? Anything else from the audience? Any other questions? Okay, well, I think we're gonna wrap it up online. We can keep talking here at the store, but goodbye, everybody online.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for
Thanks.
joining us.
Yeah.
Remember, you can get a signed book with a lenticular bookmark if you order from Blue Willow Bookshop. Have a good night, everybody.